So I have a confession for you this morning. I love Christian praise music. I can see that some of you know the kind I'm talking about. It's that upbeat pop or folk rocky style Christian music that speaks to a really deep personal relationship with God or Jesus. One of my seminary professors called it "Jesus is my boyfriend" music. Now, I'm a lifelong Unitarian Universalist, so I listen to it a little surreptitiously. I sneak in a song or two on a mixed CD, hoping that anyone who might overhear won't quite realize the actual topic of the song. The one I cringe at the most when it accidentally comes on and others are in the room has a line about Jesus hanging on the cross, which makes me cringe just to hear it myself a little bit. It's not the kind of thing that you're really supposed to listen to as a Unitarian Universalist minister. But it all started back in high school when I joined a Catholic praise band. I did, yes. It was perhaps not the most obvious choice for a UU teenager, but I joined in large part because I wanted something to do during the interminably long twice-monthly masses that I was required to attend as a Catholic school student. I surprised myself when I started enjoying the music. I remember standing up there in Mass, singing as your choir sang here, thinking to myself, man, I don't believe a word of what I'm saying. But I kind of wish I did. It was not the language of Jesus loves me and I love him that I found compelling. It was the emotion that lay just behind those words. You are my strength when I am weak, he sang. When I fall down, you pick me up. When I am dry, you fill my cup. It was the message that no matter how tough life may seem, we don't have to do it alone. There is someone, something, walking beside us at all times, offering help or comfort, solace or love. It was so very different from the staunch self-reliance that I had learned about in my UU religious education. In my RE classes as a child, we read many great stories of great men and women and who had done great things to make themselves and the world a better place. And they had done it all on their own. Or so it seemed to me. Rather than learning that there was some higher power that we could count on to walk with us on our journeys, we learned about the Unitarian ideal of self-improvement. There was no one to pick us up when we fell down. There was no one to be our strength when we were weak. We were fully responsible for our actions and for making ourselves into more whole and more perfect human beings. What a task. Somehow, perhaps because I am a chronic overachiever, self-reliance and self-improvement got translated in my head to mean that I had to fix both myself and the world, and that I had to do it on my own. It's no wonder I found the message of constant companionship in those Christian praise songs so compelling. It's no wonder that I sometimes thought to myself, wouldn't life just be easier if I could believe that there was this higher power, this God who is always with me, who could offer assurance that all will be well? Those words we heard this morning in our anthem. all will be well. You know what it's like to be a teenager, right? It's hard. They're not the easiest years of life. When I was a teenager, 2 weeks into my freshman year of high school, the September 11th attacks happened, heightening the sense of vulnerability in our world, bringing us to a new place in how we understood our fragility. The Unitarian Universalist fellowship of my childhood was predominantly humanist and atheist, very predominantly. And I was a staunch atheist myself during my Catholic school years, which made things fun. The Christian God has never made sense to me. But nonetheless, in those tumultuous teenage years, when I was figuring out who I was and our world had been thrown up into confusion and fear, I wanted to believe. I longed for that belief in the Christian God, to know that I was held by something that was bigger than me, that I didn't have to do it alone, that someone or something would carry me through when times got really tough. At some point, however, I sometimes say as my faith matured, I realized that I didn't need to long for a belief in the Christian God to know that I was held by something bigger than myself. I realized that I could find that assurance in my own faith, the faith in which I was raised. At some point, I began to translate for myself what it meant to know that all will be well in a Unitarian Universalist context. Now, I have been involved in Unitarian Universalist communities essentially my entire life. And if there is one thing I have learned in that time, in that experience, it's that we are not single, solitary souls walking this path with no one beside us. Human beings are inherently relational, inherently connected with one another. That's why we gather in communities such as this one, right? That's why we come together on Sunday morning to remind ourselves and one another that we do not walk this journey on our own. This is why we share our joys and sorrows with one another, so that our pain and our joy might be held, not just by us as individuals, because sometimes that's too hard, but by all of us as a community. When we fall down, there is someone to pick us up. We have one another. When we feel weak, we find strength in one another, in knowing that there's this entire community. Look around at the people sitting beside you. This entire community walking beside us. In the congregational record your search committee wrote, which was the very first document I got to read about you, they described the heart of this congregation as the love and support we offer to each other in times of joy, sorrow, and need, and also in our search for individual and collective truth, meaning, and purpose. Support and love. Isn't that exactly what I was yearning for in those teenage years? The heart and soul of our Unitarian Universalist communities is this very support and love that you named. This love, the big kind, love with a capital L, is at the core of our faith. It is a love that's bigger than we can imagine or know, or maybe even experience. It's a love that is present and powerful and radical and holy. It's a love that I have experienced over and over again in our religious communities. I would imagine that if you've been in this congregation for, say, more than 45 minutes, that you've experienced it as well. I imagine that this might be one of those big reasons that you keep coming back, week after week after week. Before going to seminary, I was a part of a wonderful small group ministry for young adults at a congregation down in Boston. Each week we took a retreat together down to Cape Cod to a big house that someone's uncle owned, just steps from the beach. We would spend the weekend in worship, singing, cooking together, having conversations about our faith and our lives, playing silly games, and forming deep bonds with one another, bonds that have gotten us through some very, very rough times. There was one year, it must have been early in the spring because the beach was extra cold, I remember. But we were out there anyway because it was the end of winter and we needed to be outside. And we were out there on the beach, huddled in a circle for warmth and singing our hearts out. We were singing hymns, of course. We were church nerds, so we always sang hymns. There is More Love Somewhere was one of our favorites. And that was the one we were singing out there that day on the beach. We were huddled in that circle for warmth, but also just because we liked to be near each other, to know that we had good friends by our side, to know that we were not alone. And as we sang that third line, I'm going to keep on till I've found it, I felt the love. I felt the spirit of love moving in and among us. And I thought to myself, there is something wrong with these words. It was the same spirit I had felt singing those praise songs back in high school, and the same dissonance. So I waited till the song had ended, but I couldn't hold it in any longer. I love that song, I said, but I always feel like there's something wrong with the words. Whenever I sing it, I feel like the love is right here. I don't need to keep looking for it. There is more love right here. The others laughed a little, but then agreed. We'd already found the love. So we started to sing. There is more love right here. There is more love right here. I'm gonna keep on, 'cause I've found it. There is more love right here. And so it was. Unitarian Universalism doesn't deny that suffering exists. If you've lived in this world for more than a moment of two, and I can tell you all have, you know that we live in a broken world, that the people we love hurt us or get hurt themselves, that death is as much a reality as life. So we hold that truth, but we offer another, bigger truth. In all of the suffering and all of the setbacks in your life, in all of your grief, we say to you, as your religious community, that you do not have to do it alone. We offer love, a love that is present and powerful and radical and holy, a love that will keep you going in the hard times, a love that picks you up when you fall and offers you strength when you are weak. I did my internship with a congregation on the south shore of Long Island. 2 months after I began there, Superstorm Sandy struck hard. devastating all of Long Island and New Jersey and Staten Island, but particularly the South Shore, leaving many without homes and everyone without power for 2 weeks or more. The days after the storm were marked by fear, confusion, uncertainty. Phone lines were down and parts of the island were blocked off, and it was hard for us to know the extent of the damage. But what we did know is that we needed our Sunday service that week. So my supervisor sent an email, and we went door to door to those we could reach with the message: we're gathering. Come join us. And they did. The sanctuary was fuller than I had ever seen it that Sunday, filled with a community in shock, full of worry and grief. We sang songs together, and we lit candles, and we told our stories. But most of all, we held one another in love. That service didn't make anything okay. It didn't bring the power back on. It didn't give people back their homes. But it was a hint of hope, a reminder for all those who gathered that they were not alone. It was a reminder that whatever happened in those uncertain days ahead, we would all be walking that journey together. Our UU tradition gives us this profound faith in community. We truly believe and at our best embody the notion that there is more love right here. As you wrote in your congregational record, we come together in community to support one another on our spiritual journeys and on our life journeys. We come together not under the illusion that we will agree on everything. You know that, right? Or that our relationships will always be perfect, because they won't. But with the faith that we are stronger together. We come together with the faith that our lives and our work out in the world will be better because we journey together. So I still listen to that Christian praise music, but I don't long to believe anymore, because I know that I have a different sort of faith. I just have to do some translating with those words. So when they sing about God or Jesus or anything that I'm not quite down with, I substitute love instead. The love that I have experienced so deeply and so profoundly in my journey as a Unitarian Universalist. The love that is present and powerful and radical and holy. The love that assures us that we are not alone. As Unitarian Universalists, this is our good news. We show up on doorsteps with brownies and tears. We show up at bedsides with listening ears and loving hearts. And we show up here each week on Sunday morning to remind ourselves and one another that we walk this journey together. We show up and we embody love for one another. We show up to remind one another that there is more love, and it's right here. May it be so.
You